Hey, what is going on, guys? Extra Fusion here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my first ranking video for The Walking Dead that we're going to be doing for the next 10 weeks. And you know I love ranking things. I love ranking things about the Call of Duty series. I love ranking things about the Walking Dead franchise. So I decided, instead of ranking every episode in the entire franchise, I would go season by season and rank every episode in between it from worst to best, in my honest opinion. Of course, this is my opinion. Yours might be different. These are just the episodes I consider to be best and worst of each and every season. We're going to do one of these every Sunday for the next 10 or so weeks, and we're also going to be sometime in between then doing a ranking of every season. I might wait for the actual finale to release to do that specific video, but we'll wait and see whenever it decides to come out. And also we'll be ranking the top 50 best episodes of the entire franchise, which that'll probably be after the finale as well, which, like I said, we have no idea when that's coming. This right now is going to be a ranking of all 6 episodes of season 1 of The Walking Dead. Just that. Let's get into it. So season 1 is praised by a lot for its simplicity and the way it started off the universe, how it was a very gritty universe and how the characters interacted with one another. And it definitely started off the Walking Dead franchise on the right foot, at least in my eyes. I definitely don't love it nearly as much as a lot of people do. I think it's one of my least favorites, but there were some great episodes in between there. And there's also some kind of meh episodes. So let's do this ranking. First things first, what's coming in the number 6 spot, my least favorite episode of the season, episode 5, which is titled Wildfire. So this episode, the main reason I think it's the worst of the season is because not a lot happened. You look at the episode from start to finish, where did this plot really progress? They were at the camp after the aftermath of the attack from last episode. They're just chilling around, dealing with the aftermath of that, which was nice to see. Some people dealt with it in different ways. Carol took out her anger on her ex-husband by slicing in the head with the pickaxe. Amy had to be put down by her own sister Andrea, which was a really beautifully done scene. And then when they found Jim, who was bitten. Now, I really liked all that stuff, but then it just got really, really slow. And you think about, where did we leave off at the end of the episode? They just went from the camp to the CDC, but they skipped over the whole journey. So it just didn't feel like we progressed the story that far. It's just a couple characters. Jim, they spent too much time on, in my opinion, because yes, we needed to see a character who was bitten and see what they have to go through, because we haven't seen that yet. So it was the first character we get to see go through the process of being bitten and what happens to them, the fever and all that type of stuff. We needed that, but I feel like they spent way too much time on it when the character himself wasn't that important. I feel like if they made it a character who was important and impacted another character substantially, I would be down for it, but no one there was really that connected to Jim, so I didn't feel like it developed anyone. I didn't feel like it pushed much forward, other than introducing us to the idea of someone being bitten, which was fine, but I just feel like the episode spent way too much time on it. And then they get to the CDC at the end of the episode, but again, not much progressed throughout this episode. I do love the moments with Andrea and Amy, which was amazing. Great acting by Laurie Holden. And, Daryl just about to go kill Jim, and then Rick saying, "We don't kill the living." Just iconic lines in this episode, which was great. But at the end of the day, this episode didn't progress the story as much as I think it should have, like most episodes should. Therefore, it's got to be my least favorite of this season. I don't think it's a terrible episode, but I just definitely don't think it's nearly better than the rest of them on this list. Coming at the number 5 spot, I've got episode 6, which was the finale. So yeah, the last 2 episodes of the season were my least favorite of the season. I do think the finale was a little bit better than 5. I do like how the finale showed a completely new location, which was, of course, the CDC, which I was intrigued to see this. And I do recall Robert Kirkman saying he actually wishes they didn't do this episode because he doesn't like having the virus explained too much. He wants it to be more of a mystery that's never really solved, and this episode kind of explained it in detail. But then again, even though it explained it, it didn't explain anything new that the characters didn't already know, other than what Jenner told Rick at the end of the episode, in which Rick didn't end up telling them until a season later, which was that they're all infected. I feel like it would have been okay to me if they just learned it there. I do like having that mystery over the next season or so, but it just felt off that Rick knew this the whole time and he didn't say anything, even though they saw people, coming back, and he was just like throwing it off as, oh, maybe they were just scratched or something, when we really never saw someone turning from a scratch, so we don't even know if that worked. I feel like they should have gone maybe either go balls to the wall, we learn a little bit more about the virus, or we just learn nothing and we just throw out the CDC storyline. Maybe they get there and no one's there or something of the sort. But I do like the location that they were in. I do like how they were kind of, having nice showers. That one scene when they were having dinner was great, seeing them all laughing again, being happy, and then you see Jenner like depressed, realizing that this happiness is not going to last forever. They're going to probably be dead in the next few weeks. So he was thinking, you know what, I should just end it here and kill them all, do them all a favor. And then obviously that sparks a bunch of conflict. It did feel weird how he was just forcing them to all die when he doesn't even know them, like just you don't have to force them to die along with you. But I do think that scene was kind of beautiful with him sitting there with Jackie, and they were just holding hands and getting ready for what was going to happen. But then, of course, the explosion was just trash CGI. But earlier seasons just didn't have very good CGI, so it looked very not very good. But I just felt like we didn't need this episode, other than for them to kind of realize that there is probably not going to be a cure. That was the only reason I enjoyed this episode. That's why it's a little bit higher. I do think that's important to push the story forward so they accept this, the world they're in, and that pushes Andrea and a couple other characters down a depressing spiral of like, this is it. We're not going back to the world that we used to have before. And I do like that a lot. So this episode's definitely better than the previous one, but again, I didn't feel much from it. I didn't feel like I really appreciate, maybe because they weren't out in the apocalypse, they were instead inside, cooped up in a place that didn't have any walkers in it, so maybe that's why I didn't like it, but as much as these next 4 at least. So let's get into the next spot. So coming in number 4 spots, I've got episode 3, which is titled Tell It to the Frogs. So this episode I actually originally kind of hated. I remember really not enjoying this episode, and I used to have it really low on my rankings. But after rewatching the season recently, I kind of found a new appreciation for this episode. Maybe because, I'm older now, so I'm able to kind of understand more of what's going on. And it was very dialogue heavy. There wasn't a lot of action or fun scenes or whatever. It was a lot of dialogue, but it was kind of strong dialogue. In particular, I was most interested, a lot of people probably disagree, I was very interested in Lori. So weird to me, but I was very interested in everything that was happening with Lori and Shane and Rick. And this was, of course, the episode when Rick reunited with Lori and Carl, which is to this day one of the most beautiful scenes in the Walking Dead franchise, when you see Carl screaming dad, running up to Rick, and he's just hugging them, and he's like, really great scene. The soundtrack in this episode was really great during that scene, as well as at the end of the episode, which also had a really great scene when they found Merle's hand cut off on the floor, and Daryl was screaming, and at the same time Shane was just taking all his anger out on Ed because Ed just slapped Carol in the face. So a lot of great dialogue moments between the characters. There was one scene, which this honestly is what drags it down, where Rick and Lori were talking in bed for 5 to 6 minutes straight. It was one of the longest dragged on scenes I think I've ever seen in the Walking Dead franchise. I'm like, dude, we get it, okay? Lori's, rethinking life because she realizes that Rick's here, and Rick's just loving it, but he doesn't even realize that she was sleeping with Shane. It's a long-ass scene, it's dragged out. I think I skipped it on my rewatch. I was just like, bro, I'm not watching this. Move on, That's the only thing I think that really should bring it down. And some of it does feel slow here and there, but then again, slow doesn't mean bad. Everyone throws out the word slow and means it's terrible. No, slow can be good at some points, especially after you come off of a really fast episode. But yeah, Tell Us the Frogs comes in at number 4. And coming at number 3 spots, I've got episode 4, which was titled Vatos. So Vatos is another episode which I remember really not liking, and then all of a sudden after my rewatch, I actually really enjoyed it. And Vatos, the group itself, that's one of the main reasons I didn't like this episode, is that group felt so unnecessary to the story. I mean, you see this group here, right? You're expecting there's going to be some big thing about them, and then no, they just got their grandparents in there, and they're just taking care of them, and they were just making a big fuss out of absolutely nothing. But after thinking about it for a while, the group itself wasn't really important, so I kind of wish they just didn't spend as much time on them. What was important for that group is to push our characters, our main group, into doing a mission together, because that bonds them together, that makes them become friends and become a group eventually. They needed some sort of a conflict that sort of forces them down that sort of mission. So that in that case, it was necessary. And what I really liked is kind of the story behind it, how we were expecting some big like thing happening here, but instead the big thing happens back at camp, which I kind of like that idea, how it's like they were all, you know, anticipating some shootout, but then it was just some peaceful people who just are trying to take care of these old people, and they go back to camp and boom. And that's the great part of the episode, is that ending when the walkers are coming, and that really shows off walkers in their extreme, when they really can mess shit up, when you're just chilling. And that's when they realize they can't be sitting out in the woods. They just can't. There's walkers all over the place. So that's what forces them to move in the next episode. So that pushes the plot along, that pushes the story along, which is good. That's how, you know, that's how episodes should be doing. But there was a lot of points in this episode where I just, like the Jim digging graves. Why? I really don't understand the whole point of Jim digging graves. And then he just thinks, oh, this is why I did it, because people were gonna die. You didn't know that. You were just digging them because you had some dreams about them or something. And I guess that kind of does touch into mental illness in this universe, I guess. But it touched it in a weird way that I felt like it was out of place for this particular season. And I was just like, dude, I don't care about your grave digging. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? But I really do like the brutal deaths that you get. And Daryl in this episode was pretty awesome. He was introduced last episode, but a lot of just funny lines from him with this Vatos group, the one guy they got from the Vatos group that they got in Atlanta, which again, Atlanta was a cool location to have in this episode, but it was even cooler in a different episode that's going to be a little bit further on in this list. So let's move on to the number 2 spot. Coming in the number 2 spot is episode 1, which is titled Days Gone By. So of course that's the premiere first episode of the entire franchise. A lot of people would put this at 1, most likely, but honestly, what holds it down for me, there's just one thing. It's not really rewatchable at all. Like, I really was kind of bored rewatching it, and that's because of the Rick scenes. When he's just walking through Atlanta, they drag on for a long damn time, but it's necessary for the first episode because you really want to get acquainted with this universe, and you need to see everything that's happening, and you see it slowly. It's a slow burn, yes, but you see the bodies, you see the destruction, you see the gross, you know, dirty walls, you see all this stuff, and you realize, holy shit, this world is just destroyed. So that's important. But on a rewatch, oh my god, I just skipped through the whole thing because it's just Rick walking around. You know, the facial expressions from Andrew Lincoln are great, but it's just like 20 minutes of that, and I'm just like, nah, come on, let me get to the good stuff. So then he meets up with Morgan. They make it nice and quick, right? They have Morgan literally tell us the entire thing, which I guess to some people is exposition, but at the same time, I'm okay with it. You know, it's you don't want to spend too much time understanding the virus. I know Kirkman did not want it to be the case. He wanted to focus more on the characters and what they have to go through in this new world, not really the virus itself. And that's, I think, what sets this show so far apart from other zombie related shows, is because it's not based on the virus, it's not based on a cure or any of that bullshit. It's just based on the characters and how they interact in this world. This world could be anything. It doesn't have to be zombies, and it can still work the same way it does. You know what I mean? That's what I think is so special about this universe. And so I'm kind of glad they didn't spend too much time on it. They kind of just had Morgan say straight up, like, this is how it is. He dropped the name Walkers, and from there, that's when it's been used for the rest of the season, the rest of the series, pretty much. And I really, really love that. You know, you had those moments with Dwayne where, you know, the mom came up and stuff like that, which this is stuff I don't really love, is how the Walkers acted. This kind of has to do with the whole season 1, even a little bit in season 2. The Walkers acted in ways that I just really didn't want for the series, and I'm glad they changed it eventually, because Walkers were picking up rocks, Walkers were picking up teddy bears, Walkers were jumping over fences, and it was just like, dude, that's not how we should have these Walkers be acting. And I know that's how they, I guess, originally planned it to be, but then you have some Walkers who are really stupid and don't do that. Then you have Walkers that are smart and do that. So it makes it weird, it makes it unrealistic, even though it's, you know, zombies in the first place. But what I love about this universe and how the later seasons do it is that it feels like realistic zombies. It's what zombies would be like. But them picking up teddy bears and stuff like that, that doesn't feel real to me. That feels like there's now a complete, you know, fiction, which it is, of course, fiction, but it feels less like fiction when they just act like the way they do in later seasons. You know what I mean? And so I didn't love, stuff like that. But that's small minor problems that this episode had. Other than that, it gets to the point pretty fast, and Morgan leaves, and then Rick goes to try and find his family. He's just going to go search around, and then he comes across that giant herd in Atlanta, which was an awesome place. You have some really nice shots. This episode has all sorts of great shots, and then he gets attacked, and then episode ends with the iconic, you cozy in there, dumbass. So really great stuff in this episode, but again, it just had those few moments did drag on for a while. And coming into the number 1 spot is going to be episode 2, which was titled Guts. So episode 2 was definitely my favorite episode of this season. I wouldn't say it's like anywhere close to one of my favorite episodes of the series. Season 1, it was, like I said, one of my least favorite seasons. And I feel like it's just a lot of the episodes aren't really top quality, top tier episodes in my opinion. But this episode was definitely the best one of the first season to me. It had the coolest setting out of all of them. I mean, it was like only in Atlanta pretty much. You had a couple scenes back at the camp, of course, but primarily was just focused on Atlanta, and that was awesome. And you had it in a couple other episodes too, but it wasn't like as present as it was here. And just seeing them have to go through the streets, especially Rick in the beginning, jumping from the tank, getting all the way to the alleyway with Glenn, was just awesome. Seeing the Atlanta group being introduced as well, like, formally introduced, like we had Andrea, T-Dog, Glenn, Merle, all these different characters being formally introduced to us. For a comic book fan, it was like a wet dream, and then anyone else just gets to learn them well. And you learn these characters really, really well. They do a lot of different scenes here and there that really puts you in the understanding of these characters right off the bat. I mean, Glenn, Andrea are like explained perfectly. Shane, Lori back at the camp, they have a lot of great moments. It's all just developing and making us learn these characters, I guess, is what it's really trying to do. And then they do the guts trick, which I really do think this trick personally should have been introduced later on in the franchise. To me, them just coming up with that right off the spot felt off. I feel like it would have been so much cooler if it was a while down the line, because what happens when you introduce it so early on, every single time in the future they get into a scuffle with walkers, I always sit there and question, why aren't they using the guts trick? You know what I mean? I think season 8 did a good job of explaining why you shouldn't always do the guts trick, because it could get you sick. So I do appreciate season 8 for doing that, but at the time I was like, whenever they get in a situation, just do the guts trick, which they have done it a few times later on, but I just feel like introducing this early was probably a bad idea. But it didn't matter, because it was still really cool in the first place to see them do this, and then the rain just added on a whole other factor of like, oh shit. Merle was pretty great in this episode too. Michael Rooker just killed the role, of course. We all know he did. And he was a lot of fun to watch on screen. But just like episode 1, one of my main issues with this episode was how the walkers acted. I mean, they were picking up rocks. They were jumping over fences. They were running. I mean, this show is titled The Walking Dead, and we saw walkers running. So it's just like they had an identity crisis of how they want the walkers to act in the show for the first season for some reason, and it just kept being inconsistent. And I'm glad that they finally figured that out for later seasons, but at this time, it made the walkers a lot scarier, but it also made them, like I said, inconsistent. So I felt like that was odd to me. But Guts as a whole, great damn episode for a good season. I don't think season 1's great or anything. I think it's good. And yeah, so that is my ranking for season 1, all 6 episodes. There's not too many to rank. Obviously, as we get later on in the seasons, we're going to be ranking like 16 episodes, and it's just going to be crazy. And there's going to be a lot more to talk about when you get that many damn episodes a season. But yes, so every Sunday I'll be doing one of these for the next 10 Sundays, and that's pretty damn long time, about 3 months. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Give me your ranking, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.